Hey everybody, it's Jeremy Griffin. This is a new episode of Pathways to Physical and Emotional Well-Being. And sometimes things just seem a little off kilter. Maybe they seem like your point of view is always changing, or things are just out of control. Well, sometimes you have to find a new way to navigate that change because it's all around us all the time. Episode 3 is all about that. It's about navigating change. We're going to present to you some simple actions and mindset tools to help you through those crazy transitions in life. Huge thank you to our sponsors, HFA, CVS, and also, of course, Pfizer. In fact, before we get started, let's have a quick message from Pfizer. All right. Thank you again, Pfizer, for all that you do for this community. Before we get started, you can download the Habit Book workbook right now. It's right here in the link, or you can download the Habit Tracker. Both of those are right there. And then we also have some bonus material that I'd love for you to check out. It's a beautiful PDF about coping with families coping with hemophilia as a family. So having a condition like hemophilia is something that the whole family has to find a way to work through. And this PDF has a lot of resources that will help you understand how your family can better cope with having hemophilia as a family. All right, let's go ahead and get started on some of the changes that are out there and how you can better navigate these changes.
Hello, beautiful soul. I am Bree at the School of Betty. I am a neuroscience-based life coach and money coach. And today we are going to be talking about change, my friend. Simple actions you can use and some mindset tools you can utilize as you are navigating change. Now, in this video, we're going to cover three things. Number one, why is change so hard? Number two, why do we always seem to give up in the middle of a transition or in change? And number three, we're going to talk about those simple actions, simple mindset tools you can utilize so that as you are going through change, it'll feel a little bit easier. And my friend, we can get you to success. Okay, let's get started. All right, we have to address the elephant in the room, and that is, why is change so hard? I'm sure you've probably heard this phrase before, which is the only constant is change, right? So if we know our life is constantly changing and we're going to be navigating change and transition all the time, why is it still so hard, right? Like, why every time we think of something changing or navigating a big transition, immediately our body and our brain is just like, ugh, I don't want to do this. Well, there are many reasons. We're going to talk about two. The first one, my friend, is we actually think change is hard, and mindset is everything. It is everything, my friend. When we start to shift how we think, we will actually start to shift our life. So, when we think that change is hard, we're not necessarily setting ourselves up for success as we're going into change. We are expecting it to be hard, we're expecting it to be difficult, and it can kind of be a self fulfilling prophecy in there. We're going to talk about later in this video why those thoughts are so important, okay? And number two, we are actually up against our brain as it relates to change. So this isn't just a matter of you feel like change might be hard, or if you're excited about a change and a transition, sometimes it still feels hard, right? Well, here's the thing, your brain is an incredible efficiency machine. It is constantly just scanning everything you are doing all day to identify patterns. And it identifies those patterns so it can lock in a habit. And when it locks in a habit, it is conserving energy, right? It is helping you stay efficient because it wants to be there in case there's an emergency. And here's the thing, your brain doesn't actually want to move into change. And we're going to talk about that in a second. It can be real stubborn, okay? So this leads me into the next point, which is why are we giving up in the middle of transition and change? Here's what we have to understand about our brain. It's scanning for patterns because it wants to lock in habits and be efficient. But what a lot of us don't realize is that your brain cannot tell the difference between a habit that is serving you well and a habit that is not serving you well. It's simply looking for patterns. Now, that's really powerful to know in your life, right? Because sometimes we will often say to ourselves, why do I keep doing this when I know it's not good for me? Well, you probably got a lot of habits around it, right? And when it comes to your brain locking in these habits and moving into transition, is it doesn't want to. It's stubborn, right? Because your brain is identifying your current patterns and habits as being safety. This is comfort. We're safe. So when you start to move into different actions, different behaviors, different thought patterns, you are immediately met with resistance. And that is your brain. Because all of a sudden your brain is like, whoa. This is not how we think. We don't get up at 6 a.m. to go move our bodies. This is not what we're doing. Abort. This is not the pattern. And your brain will actually start delivering deceptive messages. It will do everything in its power to keep you where you are. Let me repeat. Your brain will do everything in its power to keep you in your current behaviors. Remember, because it doesn't know if it's a good behavior for you, meaning serving you well, or a behavior that is not serving you well. And so what happens is as we're moving through change, especially if we're excited for the change, right? Let's just say you are taking a leap into a new career, you're moving different states, or you're excited about moving your body, whatever it is, whatever the transition is, and you're excited about it. When we're met with that resistance, we immediately think, I'm just not going to be able to do it. Like, this is so hard. My brain is telling me all the reasons why I shouldn't be doing that. You can't move to a different state. You shouldn't be changing careers. This is not realistic. This is not safe. And we believe it, right? And so what happens is we abort. We fall back into our safety zone because we have identified that resistance as being an indicator that we shouldn't move forward. And friend, this is where we get to flip the script, because what I want you to understand is if we know that your brain is creating patterns to create habits to be efficient, if we know that anytime you're trying to move into a new pattern or a new behavior, your brain is going to try to block that, if we know that, then when those moments arise and it is a shift or a change that we know is going to benefit us, we know it's a good move for us, we can actually use the indication of all of the deceptive brain messages coming to us as an indicator that, oh, I've actually started to shift things because my brain is trying to keep me here. So we get to use that as an indicator that we are moving forward, that we are moving in the right direction, instead of an indicator that we should stay where we are. So this is really powerful information, right? We can apply this to any area of our life, because the reality is we are often trying to create new habits and patterns and behaviors in our life. And when we are navigating change, whether we want the change or it is change that we I don't want to say forced upon you, but sometimes life happens, right? And we're navigating a transition that we didn't choose. Maybe that's a better word. This is helpful for us to understand how our brain operates. Now, I want to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about mindset, and then we're going to talk about actually creating habits. Mindset is so important for your life. I focus greatly on it as it relates to guiding students in my world, because I want you to understand this little circle of activity that happens as it relates to your mindset, okay? So here's how it works. Imagine this as I'm saying each of these words, kind of going out into a circle or creating a circle. I don't know what going out into a circle is. Creating a circle. So first, my friend, you have a thought. And because we're human, we love to attach an emotion to a thought, right? We rarely have a neutral experience when that happens. So we have a thought and then we attach an emotion to it. Well, that emotion is leading to and influencing our actions. So we have a thought attaching an emotion, which is influencing our actions. Those actions are driving us to get our results. And here's the kicker, those results affirm our original thought. So let's just kind of play this out. Let's just pick a scenario, right? Apply this to any part of your life, your career, your relationship, your money, whatever it is. We're going to use working out. And let's just say we have this thought that working out is hard. And so our emotion around that is we probably feel a lot of resistance. We probably feel dread. We just do not feel joy as it relates to wanting to work out, right? So how is that influencing our actual action? We're probably not being super consistent in that action because we want to be in avoidance, because we've told ourselves that working out is hard, right? So when we do work out, when we do take an action, we get the results, which is it feels hard because we have not conditioned our body to feel better. And we get the results, which are not actually what we want, right? So we're already starting to associate, I don't actually even get the results I want when I move my body. And it continues to affirm that working out is hard, right? So let's flip this and think about working out differently. If we say working out feels so good to my body, then we are probably anticipating we're anticipating working out, and we anticipate that we are already going to feel good before we're working out. We're saying to ourselves, working out feels really good to my body. And so our brain's like, yeah, this feels good. I'm excited. I want to go do this. Our actions are probably more consistently leaning into that because our brains want to move towards pleasure and away from pain. Remember that. Your brain wants to move towards pleasure and away from pain. So if we're telling ourselves that working out feels good, you're automatically setting up yourself up for success. So you're feeling really good, anticipating the joy. Those are your emotions, which are leading you into the actions of probably being consistent with moving your body, which is elevating your overall fitness level, which is getting you some really awesome results. And part of those results are also the original thought: working out feels really good, right? So, I want you to start to think about a change in your life. Either it's a change you are in because hashtag life happened, it's a transition or change you hope to go through, whatever it is. I want you to just write a list, write down your thoughts about what the change is, right? Like, what is it? And then I want you to identify out of the thought the use your words, Brianna. Out of the list that you have created of the change and transition, I want you to then write, what's the thought I have around this? What's the first thought that comes to mind? Be very honest with yourself, right? This is all about rewiring and starting to shift our brain and our thought patterns. And we can't do that if we're not honest with ourselves about where we are right now. So I want you to write the transition you're in or the change you hope to go through. And then I want you to write your initial thoughts. What is the thought that you have about that? And then we get to identify which ones are actually serving us towards the emotion and the actions and the results that we want. So identify the ones that are positive, and the ones that aren't moving you in that direction. I want you to identify if you can rewrite that thought in a way that is leading you there, right? So this is first step where we are going to start talking about our habits, okay? All right. So hold on to that, do that little exercise, and now I want us to move into habits. Now, what I want you to understand around habits is number one, how they're formed, and number two, the easiest ways to create new ones. And I've provided a worksheet for you that you can work through all of this at the end of this video and pay attention to it, right? So sometimes it is powerful to write things down and to go through a process. It will help your brain kind of process the things and see. I love to call it like deconstruct some of the things that are happening in our lives. So here's the thing about habits. Let's talk about some fun facts really quick. Number one, my friend, you cannot eliminate a habit that you have in your brain. Sorry, right? We can only create new ones. And this is really powerful to understand because as we're creating new habits, you're probably going to have a moment where you slip into an old behavior or an old pattern, right? And a lot of times we can use that as an indicator of like, oh, I can't do this. Like, I'm never going to be able to move out of this, or I'm sliding backwards. I'm not making progress. When I want you to use it as an indicator of like, oh, I probably just had a cue and my brain just pulled this habit back up because my new habit isn't yet strong enough, right? So we can't eliminate old habits. We can only create new habits. Number two is that as we are creating new habits, if it's something that has previously been difficult for you, let's just say we'll stay on the move your body train, moving your body, we have to make it easy. You absolutely have to make it really easy for yourself or you won't do it. Okay. Now, on the flip side, if it's something that has become too easy for you, we have to make it harder. An example of that would be, let's just say you've gotten in a habit of ordering Uber Eats and it is super easy for you to just eat out and not eat the food that you have in your house, right? Can we all relate to that? So we have to make that harder. A way you could make that harder is to say, I can eat out, but I have to actually drive to the restaurant to pick it up, right? So we have to put some roadblocks in front of us for that particular new habit because the one that we have right now is really easy, right? So as it relates to a habit, you're either going to have to make it easy or make it harder for yourself depending on where you are currently with your habits, okay? And then number 3 is that the reward, and we're going to talk about the cycle, the reward or what you're working for, you have to really want it, right? You got to really want it. And this can go into, if you did your vision, if you did your values, you're going to start to understand why you want to do things. That why is really important, right? Because then from that why, we can actually start to create rewards that are really appealing to us. All right. So let's talk about the general structure of a habit. We're not going to overthink this. We're not going to overthink anything in these videos, actually, beautiful soul. And I say that because I am a classic overthinker. The structure of a habit. Number 1, we have the cue. And a cue could be anything. It could be a smell, it can be an environment, it can be a word, it can be an interaction with someone, right? So it can be a cue you have created or a cue that has your environment has just created for you. So a cue is something that triggers you into the habit, into the actual habit loop, right? And from that cue, we usually have a craving. Now, the craving is you actually start to desire the result from the habit, the action, or the transformation, right? Give me 1 second. I'm going to pause. Okay, I'm back. I just had a really awesome coughing fit, so I wanted to spare you. Okay, so we have our cue and we have our craving. The craving leads us into the action, right? So we crave, like, ooh, I want that. We lead us into the action, and then we get to get the reward. Now, if we want to get really nerdy about the brain science around everything, we can think of the craving as the actual dopamine hit. So, dopamine actually is a little misunderstood in that we think it's the thing that's going to get us the happiness, the joy. Dopamine is really like a catalyst. Dopamine is like the craving. It's anticipating, right? It's anticipating the action. Now, here's the not so fun part is that the actual pleasure and joy is processed in a different part of our brain. So this is why we can sometimes get in these habit loops. Let's just use shopping for an example. We get excited about shopping when the reality is we just want to feel a high. We want to feel joy, right? So we go shopping, we go buy the thing, and then we get home and we don't feel the joy. And so we want to try to make ourselves feel better again, and we just stay on the hamster wheel, right? When dopamine is really just kind of driving us towards the anticipation. Just a little side note for you. So here's the thing. We can use a very simple example to go through like the cue and the craving. So you can have a cue around you run your tongue over your teeth after you eat, right? I'm using this because I'm hardcore brush my teeth, floss. And you feel that they're not super clean, which immediately cues you into this craving of wanting clean teeth. So you move into the action of brushing your teeth, you achieve the result, the sensation that you wanted, right? Now that's a really simple one, but I want it to be simple for you to kind of think through each of those little steps, right? Now, as it relates to creating a new habit, the mistake most individuals make is trying to change everything in the cycle. Super hard, right? I want individuals to change one thing in the cycle. Now, we can look at it not from a mindset point of view and say, just change the action. But I always want you to kind of add on that mindset because when you actually change your thought around something, you are probably going to change your action naturally, right? So, in your worksheet, you are going to see how I'm going to take you through this, okay? So I want you to write a list of all of the things that you are either navigating or you want to create a new habit around, right? So you already kind of started to do this. And then I want you to identify 3 that you want to focus on. Just 3, beauty, because we love to be overly ambitious around what we want to change in our lives. And we have to remember that when we are trying to hit a new goal or change something, we're committing to new habits and behaviors, and it takes us time to actually rewire those things. And I would rather you pick 1 to 3 and do it really well and actually rewire it and create a new habit than pick 5 to 10 and still not feel accomplished, like constantly be in the back and forth of going back and forth of like in the new habit and out of the habit, right? So I want you to Use your worksheet, write down the whole list, and then pick the 3 that you want to focus on. Now, for each of these 3, I want you to use this section and really write out what you desire. What are the desired results you want? How are you going to feel? That is also really important, right? Tell your body how you want it to feel. And then you are going to take, for each habit that you're going to work on, you are going to deconstruct it. So you're going to see, it's like, what is the current cue? What's the current craving? What is your current action and what's your current result? And then you're going to get to rewrite what's the new action and what's the new result, right? So as we do this, I want you to, again, be mindful of how you can implement it, right? So remember to focus on either the thought or just the tiny action and try it out for a week. Try it out for a week, and then I want you to reflect back and say, how did that go? Because if we don't actually reflect back and think through, was it better? Did it feel hard? How can I make this easy? How can I make it harder if I need to? When we don't have that moment, we're not actually teaching our brain anything. We're not actually understanding what we need to do to make the tiny incremental change. And that's really, really important, right? A lot of people just say, this is the new habit I'm creating, and they're just like 2 weeks later, like, it didn't work. But they didn't actually go through the space of what I like to call, just like we are capturing data, right? If it didn't work 1 week, that's a good data point to understand how can we make it easier. Are we focusing on the right thing, right? We have to be in this state of curiosity and inquiry in order to make change, in order to be able to create those new habits, okay? Friend, I want you to keep this moving. So I want you to also think of the one tiny mindset shift you're going to do, whether that's a positive thought, right? That you can, I have this sticky on my desk right here in front of me. I am capable of overcoming this challenge, right? So anytime I'm hitting a moment that's tough, your brain will believe what you tell it. I want to tell it and move it in the right direction. I want to tell it something so that my thoughts are leading me towards the emotions and the actions that I desire, right? So that I'm getting the results that I desire. And then as you're working on the habits, just focus on that one tiny action. So if you're all 3 of them feels overwhelming, just pick one, okay? I am sending you so many good vibes. And friend, just remember, you are one good habit away from really transforming your life. One tiny habit, one tiny action, one tiny thought. If you do it consistently, it is going to change your life.